Okay, welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is 𝐿𝐴𝐴 𝐵𝑒𝑐. I'm the host of the Insight Cafe, and today I'm going to welcome my really special guest, Kalem Fergusson, transformative leadership coach, consultant, writer, and full-time human being from Regina, Canada. And I prepared a special intro for this. I haven't slept.
Here we go.
All right. So let me close this Facebook. All right. So, Kalem Fergusson, AKA the Big Moose, the Maple Leaf, the Maple Syrup, legendary moose wrangler from Canada. Legend has it, you were thrown into a pack of wolves in the Yukon, and you emerged the leader of the pack, and you single-handedly saved the Yukon from foreign invaders. Self-appointed king of the Canada.
Oh, no. This is better than I expected. This is good.
I told you, I lost sleep over this. And that's about it for now. I have more coming later.
That's funny.
Oh, I forgot. Kalem is an amazing coach. Every time I talk to him, he always reminds me of this fact. So welcome to Kalem. So would you like to add anything to that epic intro?
Well, I just thought you were going to say thrown into a pack of wild moose, not wild wolves. So, I mean, thanks, I guess.
Self-appointed king of the Canada.
King of the Canada. Okay, that wasn't self-appointed though.
All right. So, tell us, what is the art of having nothing on it?
I mean, if we want to look at it literally, it's a concept you and I came up with to represent the experience of what life is like when there's not as much weight on whatever we want to create or where we want to head. And I was thinking about this a little earlier, and it's weird because ever since we started talking about it, I've talked about it with a few other people, and it's, the sort of concept it's in all it's made up, right? But it's a really beautiful way of pointing to the space that's present when we show up to life without any weight or attachment on the outcome of that which we're trying to create. And to me, what I see is most people, when it comes to creating something important or doing something important in the world, whatever they view as important, they really, there's one thing that I think a lot of people get confused over, which is they think that caring means, or something, they think really caring about something or something being really important means that it should have more weight to it. Means that we should be thinking more about it more often. And, both for me personally and my clients over the course of time, I've just come to see that approach is completely made up, that we need to have more weight or more thinking about or more attachment to something that is important or that we care about. In fact, it's funny because, paradoxical almost, because what I've seen is the more weight and attachment we have on something, the less effective we are in creating it, or the less effective we are in having something come into being. It usually happens a lot slower, and so I guess long-winded way of pointing at, to me, the art of having nothing on it. And I just for some reason it's become really catchy. You know, a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I really like that. And so I've actually decided, and we talked about this offline, I've decided that I'd like to write a book on the nature of this space and the foundational principles that this understanding of this space have come from. And so I don't know, that's exciting, but yeah, ultimately it's just pointing at the possibility that's present when we spend more time in that space that I've just kind of in my own way described. And so while I describe it one way, I know that most people in their own way have experienced it. And so even if it's gone unnoticed, or even if they have different language to describe it, it's a lot more common than most people think. And so it's a lot easier to point to and to see than most people think, as long as they know where to look.
All right, well, that's a wrap. It has been a fantastic live. I will see you all later. All right. So what I heard a lot in that, I heard that we have a lot of self-created habitual thinking about things external to us that put a lot of pressure on us, that kind of fuck with our way of being in the world, right? And so the other thought that came to mind was like that book, you know, The Art of Not Giving a Fuck. I thought, man, that book's so 2018. This is the art of having nothing on it. This is where it's at. This is where the juice is at, the 𝐏𝐸₪ juice. So how would you
the moose juice?
The moose juice. The art of that's so terrible.
It is. But I mean,
the art of having
it's your nickname.
That's not my nickname. All right.
No, it's the nickname you've given me. To anyone who's watching.
The moose juice, the moose knuckle, the maple leaf, the maple syrup, the hashtag 𝐏𝐸₪'s nicknames. How much can we come up with? All right, so but even that a direct application is the art of having nothing on nicknames and how much fun we can have with it, right? So how do you think this idea applies to some of the things people are up against in the world or they're working on? And if you have any personal stories, that would be really good too. Like things you used to have something on it, but now you don't.
Yeah. I can definitely share some stories around that. But when you ask that, my question is, you know, it would be helpful if I had more specificity, knowing like what people are coming up against or what people are working on, like something common that somebody might come up against. Like typically what people come up against or struggle with when it relates to them having a lot of thinking about or weight on something.
Okay, so good point. Fair point, Coach 𝐏𝐸₪. Bitch.
You lost.
I know I did. I'm gonna lose hard today. So I'd say, I guess people listening to this podcast, like people in business, people in leadership positions, people who are trying to create things in the world, or athletes like me who are competing at high levels, professionals, or I guess anything that. Actually, I just realized we can have anything on anything. We can make anything a much bigger deal than it actually is, right? And so let's speak to like your expertise of leadership and business development. Like how can people have things on that kind of inhibit their natural creativity and innovation?
Sure. So a few different things occur. One is a sort of personal experiential story I can share, or just even pointing to multiple experiences I've had. The other thing is I can point at what's typical for most people in the leadership space. And I think this is where I'll start, which is pointing at like, what is the nature of the space we're talking about? And the thing that occurred to me is the nature of it is that it is impersonal, right? It exists for everybody. You know, it's a space that exists for everybody before they get too caught up in their thinking or too caught up in whatever story they have made up about what being in a leadership position means. You know, and that's the kind of commonality is people in leadership positions, or any position really, is they look at what they want or where they are. And we all do it. We look at what we want, where we are, and the meaning-making machines in our heads start to go to work, right? And we will make up what our position means, you know, and then we try to work with that meaning, right? And so what I've seen most people come up against is just a lot of misunderstandings around what it really means to lead.
Do you think that we make it way more complicated than it is? Because I've seen that with other clients.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like they have this image of what a leader is that's entirely made up. And so if we were to have nothing on leadership, like, what would that look like for being a leader?
Well, I mean, I can speak to experience, and what it looks like is, I was having a conversation with a client probably last month, and I spoke with him again today, and he's a leader in a tech company, and he's in New York, but like, it's funny because whether you're in tech or hospitality or the restaurant business, whatever it is, you know, you're dealing with people. And so I think the simplest form of looking at this is the more we understand people, the better we are as leaders. Like, that's just plain and simply that. But anyways, I'm having a conversation with my client, and he had an insight around just how much of this is all illusory and make-believe. Like, not just business and leadership and all the dynamics and all this stuff, but life as a whole. And he started talking about, oh yeah, like, it's all just make-believe, and this person's, you know, it's like, yeah, there's money involved. We're all getting paid to play make-believe, and this person is the make-believe king, CEO of the company, and this person's this, and this person's that.
Like you're the king of Canada.
Yeah, sure.
Sure. Okay, so.
But yeah, anyways, that's just kind of an example of what's on offer when we start to spend more time on this space is when we start to see that we don't have to spend so much of our mental energy and capacity on thinking about whether something's going to work out or not, on putting weight on something in efforts to have it work out better, or thinking about something more means that it is somehow going to work out more in our favor. When we realize that unnecessary weight doesn't have to be there, or rather that it's just not helpful in the way that we thought it was, what happens is infinite creative space opens up. You know, we have more freedom of mind, we have more mental clarity, we're just more creative, you know, we're more resilient, we're more naturally innovative. You know, it's what I've noticed is problem solving is one of the first things, especially in business, that becomes effortless when we start to see more around this, right? Like, problem solving isn't even a thing. It's just like, oh, there's something not working, and, you know, spend long enough in an empty space and something creative will come into play about what we can do as for having an innovative solution for something. But that's kind of one example. I mean, I'm trying to point at your original question. I think what you asked was, you know, what becomes possible, something along the lines of what becomes possible when we spend more time with it.
And can you, like, do you have any like personal stories of things where like you had something on it and then you didn't, and then cool shit happened?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll point at some of my more recent stories because they're like, and I can point at from both sides. So I remember a long time ago, this is like the reverse of what we're talking about, which is I started out having nothing on it and then noticed myself put something on it and the effect that had. And so I had a friend say, hey man, like, what do you do for a living? I think I want to connect you with somebody, you know, and that happened. And I just connected with this guy. We had coffee and I just sat and listened to him, and I didn't have any opinion as to who he was. I didn't have any thoughts as to, you know, what we were gonna do. It didn't look to me like we were gonna work together. It was just, I just had a conversation with him and connected with him. Didn't have anything on it, had no agenda, nothing. And then he starts talking about the business season. And I'm like, oh, cool. And then I think of his name and realize that his last name is associated with one of the biggest insurance brokers here. You know, and then I go, oh, like, this guy's the president of this company and his family founded it.
Oh, snap.
And then after we had that conversation, the amount of shit that came up in my head about how much weight there was on this relationship now after we talked about working together. Like, that's where I noticed the reverse of it, right? Is just how much weight we can create around something when we put more importance on it, or rather when we misunderstand that importance means thinking more about it.
So it's almost like, it's not even a tool or a habit. Like, now that I know the art of having nothing on it, I will forever have nothing on it. It's noticing, it seems to me it's more about noticing when you're having something on it. And to speak to your point, I guess it's noticing when I don't have something on it. Like, I have a good friend, Sandy, a fellow troublemaker, fellow mischief. I know she's smiling because I'm giving her a shout out. She's watching this. We have so much just talking shit, because when I'm talking shit with her, I really have nothing on anything. But it's amazing when I'm in the moment now, I'm realizing how much creativity comes through that trash talking and just chatting. But it's funny because I see it as so normal, but I don't see it like, oh, this could work for business. This applies to business. This applies to leadership. This natural ability just to be creative when you're just approaching something with this lightness, right? So that's what came to me. Continue your story.
And that's kind of the end of that, other than the fact that it was a little bit of back and forth when I realized how much I had created a story in my head about now what needed to happen because of, you know, who this person was and blah, blah, blah. But the image I had when you were talking is like, when we have nothing on it, it's kind of flowing effortlessly, right? It's like having nothing on it is like consistent momentum. It's like a consistent movement. That's why the conversation flows, right? And then having something on it, it's suddenly like, it's like a dead stop stuck on a thought, right? So if we take the image of, say, like a snowball starting to roll down a hill, as long as it's in consistent motion, you know, as long as it's flowing, it is going to build mass. It is going to gain form, right? So, and the more things flow, the more they gain form.
So the thinking,
whether it's a
form, right? The thinking will gain form.
Yeah, and it goes both ways. Like the nothing on it will also gain form. Like when you're talking about having a creative conversation, when we're unattached, ideas tend to gain form because it's moving, like it's flowing, right? And on the side of thinking, it also works the same way. It feels a lot less like flow, but it's still like a snowball gaining mass the longer we spend with it, right? And so I don't know if that's a great metaphor, but
It's a terrible metaphor, Keon. You suck.
yeah,
No,
that's okay. I'm all right with sucking.
well,
I'm completely
because you have
unattached.
nothing on sucking, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Favorite hobby. So, anyways, moving. This lab is gonna be fire. So, anyways,
yeah.
What do you reckon for you are some things that you kind of feel you still have something on it?
You know, first I'm going to share a couple more stories about the what we're really talking about, because I had shared the story about having nothing on it than having something on it, but I kind of want to share stories about having something on it and going to having nothing on it.
All right, go for it. Shoot.
And just because that's probably what people are more concerned about. You know, that's probably what people are more like, the things that I have a lot of weight or a lot of thinking about, I would like to move into more of a space of not having so much thinking about and having more freedom and creativity and all this kind of stuff around. So one thing I remember a couple of years ago, you and I were actually talking, and this is when we first met. So maybe it was a little less than a couple of years ago.
Last year.
But well, we've known each other for probably a year and a half now, I think. Yeah. So it's been around a year and a half ago when I was inspired to do work with leadership in gaming and esports organizations. I didn't know how it was going to happen. I did a little bit of research and it kind of stopped there. But I knew that's something I wanted to be involved in because I saw the need. And because I grew up as a gamer, I grew up playing games, and I thought, you know, why not combine a couple of the things that I really enjoy? It's not like I would be playing games while coaching people, but it's just an industry that I think has a lot of potential to be impactful. And so I thought of that and I went, cool, you know, and I don't know how it's going to happen, but it would be cool. And then, you know, before reaching out to people, to me was a consistent, either I send an email or I reach out to someone and then I leave it because I'm like, oh man, you know, how do I keep from messing this up? How do I get their attention? How do I do this? How do I do that? Right. And then I would go back and think, did I do it right? Did I do this? Did I do that? Because to me, it was like, I have one opportunity, and if I blow it, it's done. You know, like, it was, to me, having something work out that seemed big to me, like working with people who are, I mean, effectively in the front of billions of eyes, right? And so I just had a lot of weight on it. And it would, you know, I'd keep from following up with people because I'm like, I don't want to be needy. I don't want to be this. I don't want to be that. I had a lot of stories made up about what it meant about me if I were to do things a certain way. And so I would just keep from doing a lot. You know, I would think about doing a lot, but I just wouldn't do a lot. And when I did do it, it was like, it was almost like a struggle or a push, you know? And so, you know, full circle to around a month ago, I noticed over media and a couple of articles that some executives left one of the biggest and esports gaming organizations in the world and went to start their own that was more centered on diversity and inclusion and really changing the industry. And that really lit me up. And so I just started shooting a bunch of messages and emails and trying to get a hold of these people. And eventually I got a hold of the CEO. And here was the difference is I remember the difference. I was having a conversation with a friend, and I was just like, hey, you know, I'm thinking of sending this email to a person in a tech incubator. This was at the beginning of coronavirus, to see if, you know, any other founders could use any support or what their founders are going through, to get an idea of, you know, how I can support people, especially in the tech industry. And I wrote out the email, and for me, it was like, I had no reference point as to what was effective and what wasn't. And so I read it out to her, and this is a person who's been coaching and working with tech people for a long time. And she went, oh, that's really good. She's like, I actually, you know, that's a good idea. I haven't thought of that. And then we had a conversation, and I went, it's crazy how much I've made up that's kept me from just playing the game, you know, and has kept me from seeing that I'm already actually great at it. And so that helped with that sort of weird sense of validation. But we also had a conversation around, you know, I was always afraid to follow up with people because I didn't want to be annoying. I didn't want to be needy. I didn't want to be this. I didn't want to be that. And then we just talked about how, you know, there's really nothing on it. You know, unless someone tells you to leave them the fuck alone, follow up with them, right? Unless someone tells you explicitly that this is the way something is for them, then you don't really know what they're thinking, right? So it's, for me, that's when I realized, oh, like, I don't have to think so much about what other people will think of me.
Because most of it's is made up of what you're thinking.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, fast forward to now, you know, at the end of this week, I've got a call with this CEO, and it's all because I don't really have much weight on connecting with these people anymore. To me, they are just human beings. And when it comes to whatever they might think of me, I recognize on a deep level now, like, I think when we start to have an understanding of where our experience really comes from, we start to see that even when we do get caught up in it, it doesn't have to affect how we show up.
Say that last part again.
Like, once we understand where our experience comes from, even if we get caught up in it, it doesn't have to affect how we show up. You know, like, if I'm in a leadership position and I notice that I'm caught in my thinking, but I know where my experience is coming from. If I notice I'm pissed off because I'm having a bunch of thoughts around how things should be and that they're not meeting that mark and this and that. If I know that that experience is coming from a busy mind with insecure, angry thinking, and not because of what's going on in front of me and because the world isn't the way I think it should be, right? When I recognize where my experience is really coming from, it enables me to show up with more a sense of who I really want to be, with more a sense of how I want to show up, especially in a leadership role, right? And so there's that, but it's funny because it's like, we have all these things we want to do. And one of the things I thought I just kind of put out there is I would like to start working with some celebrities and influencers. And it turns out one of the owners and one of the other executives for this gaming organization is a DJ with really tight mass connections in the music industry, you know? And so it's funny to just, in hindsight, look at these things and go, oh, like, there's not that much of it that's up to me. You know, I need to show up and take action where applicable and where it's needed. But I think that's another big part of what we're calling the art of having nothing on it, is the recognition that it's not all up to us.
Mm. Do these people know that you are like the legendary moose of Regina? Like they should, if anything, they should have something on it, not you. Like, like they should have
Jeez.
something on it. So, so I'm listening to you talk, and I guess what's coming for me is, to me, it seems to me that the art of having nothing on it is in large part noticing when you do have something on it. How can one know, like how can they tell, like what are the signs that they have something on it?
To be honest, it's just a feeling, man. So when something on, so that could equate to something being on it. When something is on anything, let's say how we're carrying ourselves, you know, the metaphor of carrying. If there is something on what we are carrying, it is going to feel heavier.
Mm.
Right? Like Michael Neal, one of our mentors, has a metaphor about climbing a mountain, and you know, most of us thinking that in the sense of thinking more about it helping us, it's almost like before we go on the hike, we throw, you know, rocks in our knapsack and a weighted blanket on.
Mm.
So that we can travel with all our thinking and all the weight associated with it and all this kind of stuff. And so for me, the first indicator is the feeling,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's a sense of heaviness to it. The second thing
keep going.
the second thing I think is seeing how we're responding to things. You know, like are we in more of a reactive state?
Mm.
Or like how much
So
for me it points to freedom of mind, you know, but I'm kind of sitting with that. I might have to think a little more about it.
So if you're being a moody bitch, chances are you probably have something on it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Simplicity, right?
Yes.
So let me just summarize. So we can know that we have something on it when it feels heavy and we feel like kind of very reactive. It's them, it's their fault, and it's their and it's about me, like I'm not good enough and I'm not smart enough to do this, right? Like that's when you can tell you have something on it.
Mm-hmm.
And when you don't have anything on it, things feel very simple. They feel light, they feel flowy.
Yeah, and I might add that like when it comes to having something on it, there's often a thought about how whatever direction we're heading in, things have to work out a certain way for us to be okay.
So kind of like control, right? This like if I'm going, even if we're not talking about leadership and business, like if I'm going on a date and I'm like, this date has to work out like this for me to feel like it's a successful whatever date, right?
Yeah, or for me to feel just okay. For me to be okay, things need to work out a certain way. The date needs to work out a certain way. Talking to the girl needs to work out a certain way. Having this one-to-one, you know, if a senior manager or a manager has a report that they're revisiting every week in one-to-ones, like this conversation has to work out this way for things to be successful. For, you know, it's just the idea that it needs to be fixed, right?
Yeah, it needs to look like this for me to be happy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. And so when it comes to not having anything on it, and just how, you know, anyone who might be listening, how this can be of application, I guess, is the first thing I'd say is just start to notice when we do have something on it. And if that's something we don't want, start to look at what we would like to experience instead. How would we like to experience this thing instead? It's just kind of coming back to the question of, okay, if I don't want this, what do I really want?
Okay. You know what I just noticed? I think it occurs to me that, like, we're talking about the art of having nothing on it as if it's a new thing. But I just realized that the art of having nothing really is our natural state. Like, we don't have a lot of thinking about houseplants, right? Or like we like the mundane things in our lives, like grocery shopping or walking or getting a drink of water. Like, I have never in my life been stressed about getting a drink of water or taking a shower, right? And how interesting it is how we don't notice that, right? Just how effortless those things are because we really don't have a lot of thinking about it. Can you imagine like how worked up we would be if like, okay, the water needs to be exactly this much in my cup or this is going to ruin my day, right?
Yeah.
Or the water in my shower needs to be exactly this temperature or it will ruin, like,
I know some people, man.
Right, please tell.
I just people who are really adamant about cold showers.
Right.
So.
And how innocent is that like how they studied like a Wim Hof thing and like I need to take cold showers every day and if I'm not cold shower my day is ruined, right? And it's like it's a shower.
Yeah. And that's really cool. So that's another thing that we can look at is where, as a question to ask ourselves and really see is where in my life does it feel natural for me to have nothing on it, right? And based on that, based on where you're already having that experience, what do you make of the difference between that and the other things that seem harder? That's like, I think that's a great sort of question to sit with for most of us. And
so because that was really good. Let me summarize, say that again. So where in your life do things feel really natural? And where in your life do things feel really unnatural and hard? And to notice, might you have something on those things that feel unnatural and hard?
Yeah. And then looking at the two and kind of asking myself, what do I make of that difference? Like, why is there a difference? Sitting with, what the difference is between those two things. Why is one so easy?
Right.
Why does one seem so hard?
Like, why is it so natural and easy for me to come up with abusive and hilarious nicknames for you when it's harder for me to like go out and maybe, talk to a new client or create business, right? The other, like the first one is super easy. I can come up with nicknames for you all day, right? But I guess like I might have more thinking because when it's about me, like, oh, I have to be professional. I have to, I have to look a certain way and this has to go a certain way. And how I think for me in this journey, and I just thought of a new nickname, but that will come later. In this journey for me, it's just noticing how much stuff I had on, I think for me, like martial arts and Taekwondo, like having so much stuff on winning, so much stuff on winning the gold medal and so much stuff on performing well and how hard Taekwondo was. And now when I'm noticing all the stuff I have on, this is a cool thing I noticed about this too. The moment I do notice that I have something on it, I don't need to fuck with it. I don't need to try and fix my thinking. I don't need to try and reframe my thinking or visualize a better outcome. And I was like, oh. And to point back to your metaphor about, carrying your rucksack up the mountain, I can just put the rucksack down. And like, oh, I have a lot on this. Cool. Put the rucksack down and just move forward. And so with Taekwondo, a very clear correlation to performance, I'd say. Now that I take Taekwondo less seriously, but I approach it with more reverence. So there's a difference, right? I have less on it, but I approach it with a deeper respect and reverence, and I have more fun in it. and the performance went through the roof. Like I see more, it's easier for me. I can see through the game more. And even with like business and things I create, it just feels easier. Yeah.
Yeah. Something occurred to me when you were talking about carrying the rucksack, and it's that I think the reason so many people are challenged with this is because when you're carrying the rucksack for long enough, you get used to the weight.
Yeah.
It starts to become normal. You know, and that's where, you know, we have to notice the lightness of not carrying the rucksack to see that it's not so much it's not so much natural as it is just normal, you know, something we got used to. What's natural is that lightness when we do tend to put down the knapsack, but when we forget we're wearing it, we get used to the weight.
What has been something, like if you relate that to yourself, like what has been something that you thought was a natural weight, but it actually was made up? Besides being a big ass moose.
You should find that fucking, oh no, you weren't with us. I was gonna say I have a clown nose for you here, but you're across the world.
Oh, so. Snap. You're gonna call me a clown on my own podcast, Caleb? Okay.
Yeah.
What a dick.
This is the most like uncanny, unorthodox podcast interview ever, but it's good. I like
Welcome to the show.
Yeah. I would say, for me personally, it's been two things. One was talking to women and the other was money. Right? For a long time, just because of you know, a sort of collective conditioning around money. It seemed to me like money was innately a heavy subject.
So hold up. So everybody watching this podcast, if you've ever had something on about money or talking to the opposite sex or the same sex, raise your hand.
Nikon, that was Nikon's caveat for himself.
I'm trying to be very mindful. Screw you. I'm trying to be mindful. I'm trying to be mindful. It's 2020, okay? Like you gotta like, you know, be mindful about that stuff.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So what I started to realize is the example for me would be like proposals with clients, right? Like there used to be a lot of weight on that because I thought for most people that money was a heavy subject because it was for me. And when I stopped, or when I started to notice more and more about the nature of money, like if we really think about money, it's a concept, right? Like before, like if money was of universal truth, it would have always been here. If money was of universal truth, everybody would experience it the exact same way.
I wonder
but that's just not true, you know? And so,
yeah. I wonder if maple syrup was a valid currency at one point. Like when you were a child.
it still is, man. I'm telling you, that stuff's valuable.
like when you were back in the hood, in your hood, like, did you trade and sell maple syrup? Like,
no, when I was younger, I was trading and selling other stuff that was more valuable than maple syrup. I won't talk about that here, though.
Okay, Big Moose. All right. So, if money was the valid truth, it would universally have been here.
Yeah. Like it's something that everybody, I think, would experience the same way. But not everybody experiences it the same way. And so when I started to see more into the nature of money and the nature of my thinking about money, I started to show up with less on those conversations. And when I started to do that, I noticed other people didn't feel as uncomfortable talking about money. Right. And so now, like when I'm talking with a client, I have no problem throwing what most people might think of as a big number at them or a little number at them. Like to me, it's just like, it just kind of floats out of my mouth.
So you're throwing,
I have
your moose on the table.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, sure. But it's that's the thing I've noticed is that's something I had a lot of weight on before that I don't now. And I think part of it is just the recognition that no matter what, I am okay. That nothing outside of me can make me okay. Like, I think that insight has ultimately led to me seeing these things, especially, and that with those two areas, right? Talking to women and money. And it's not like I'm not a womanizer or anything. Like I'm not a player. I don't really like, for me, it's just a matter of when I think about it, there's not as much nerves or anxiety or any of the stuff that comes around it. To me, it's just, in truth, it's just one human being talking to another.
What's the most
anything after that is
the most outrageous thing you've done with nothing on it? I'll think about that too.
That's a good question. I feel like collectively in my life, I had more on it, but when I was more reckless while I was younger, I feel like there was times where I just had nothing on it with that sort of, I don't give a fuck, you only live once. And though that was more outrageous, like I can say there was some really outrageous shit that I did. But when it comes to me recognizing and having more insight into the deeper nature of life, I'd say the most outrageous thing I've done is probably put more money than I had into something, like to the point where I didn't know if I'd be able to pay rent. But just, I had a sense that, this, like, it's going to be good. It's going to be okay. And there was nothing on it in terms of thinking too much, right? There was just an inner knowing. And so it's funny because I noticed myself a couple of months ago, I moved into a new condo and I was trying to figure out how I was going to pay bills 6 months down the road. Right. I'm like, oh, I have enough money to last me this long. What am I going to do in 6 months, as if, I'm going to freeze and nothing's going to happen over the course of the next 6 months.
Yeah, we do that, don't we?
Right. I cannot know what's going to happen over the course of the next 6 months. I cannot know what's going to happen when I decide to go talk to this woman. I cannot know what's going to happen when I have a conversation with somebody about the possibility of working together.
Do you think what fucks us up the most about this is that we think we know what's going to happen?
Yes. Either way, right?
Yeah.
Is we have a picture or an idea into our heads about how it's going to go. And it's not so much that we have the picture or idea that fucks us up. It's that we get attached to it.
Yeah. Like this particular outcome.
Because I still have a lot of
right? And I'm going to just attach my ass to the scariest thing I can think of what's going to occur in the next 30 minutes. And of course you're going to be freaked out, right?
Yeah. And that's what I mean about like putting weight on it, is we come up with these pictures and stories and all these things, and we think attaching ourselves to them will either help or prevent them from happening.
So I need to come up with a better picture, right? And then like, that's just not helpful. It's like more thinking.
Yeah, or like I need to think about it more, right? I need to visualize my dream life more. I need to, I just need to think about it more. One of the things I hear people most say is, give me some time to think about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think when I say I need to think about it, what I'm really saying is no. And the
Yeah.
second thing I'm really saying is when I'm really honest about it, it's like I feel like I need more space. So
Yeah.
it's just articulation, right? It's like I've learned to say I need to think about it. What I really mean is I just need more space. Like let things settle for me down. I don't really need to think about it. I just need more space. And
Right.
that's
Right.
really new for me. So I'm gonna start saying that. So every time we play Warzone and Call of Duty and I lose, I'm gonna say, you know what, Cam, I need some more space to think about this, to be with this. I'm getting my ass kicked on Call of Duty.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you can do that on your own.
Oh, snap. Because you don't lose, right?
Well, that's one, but actually I lose a lot. I just don't have anything on it. Um,
Oh, oh,
to
oh,
coin
burn,
the
burn,
term. Anyways,
burn.
I
Okay.
I just haven't played in a while, and I don't have a setup right now. So, um, anyways, I think for me, to circle back to what we've been talking about in between just randomly bullshitting with each other, is when we see into the nature of how we really work, when we see into the nature of our experience, it starts to make less sense to give it so much leeway.
Mm.
Like to give the scary thoughts we have so much leeway, to give the having something on it so much leeway, right? I mean, I think about the scary stuff a little less now, but I can guarantee you I might think about it just as much. My experience of it has just changed.
So here's what it looks like to me. I still think about the scary stuff, but the scary stuff doesn't scare me so much anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't look as scary.
Yeah. And that's like, I mean, to anyone who ends up listening, that's essentially what we're talking about is on offer is you can move forward in life with the possibility of what you think you're scared of not scaring you anymore.
Mic drop.
And what like that with the sort of caveat that like sometimes we still might get scared. It's not to say we don't. It's just a matter like it just doesn't affect us as much. You know, we can still move. Like fearful thinking doesn't have to paralyze us. Right. So what's on offer is like you just don't have to be so afraid of insecure thinking anymore. And with that, there's usually a lot more space to move around. There's usually a lot more space to create more. There's usually a lot more space to operate with freedom. You know, and that's the funny thing is when I say freedom, what occurs is like most of us try to manage our thinking and limit ourselves in efforts to be more free.
Mm. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, that's a great premise to point to. When you're always free.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's like, I think that's also one of the things that are at the core of the nature of what we're talking about
Mm-hmm.
is that we are always free. Because essentially, what we're pointing at is just operating with freedom.
Mm. Cool,
You
man.
know, without the need to carry anything.
So, yeah, I think that's the perfect ribbon bow to wrap this up with. So we're coming up on the hour, and I'd love for you to let us know where can we find you, what hole which hole area do you live in where we can dig you up? Which part of the Yukon forest do you hang out in? You know, like, you know, the moosey parts. So like, where can we find you, connect with you, and to learn
Is
more?
it wolves or moose? Like, is it?
It's fucking everything at this moment.
Okay.
But traditionally it's been mooses, occasional wolves. But where can we connect with you?
Through Facebook, just my name, Kalem Fergusson. Instagram, my name, Kalem Fergusson. LinkedIn, my name, Kalem Fergusson. And
Instagram, Kalem Fergusson.
Yeah. And my email is just k.fergusson1@gmail.com if anyone wanted to reach out that way. But honestly, usually through Instagram direct message or Facebook direct message is the best way to reach me. I mean, I have a Twitter handle. I'm not all that active on it. So that's like, I mean, it's the same. You can probably look up my name, Kalem Fergusson, and you'll find it. Nothing fancy.
And lastly, what are some projects to anybody listening who did want to reach out with you for something specific? Like, what are some things you are really excited to be working on that if someone reached out to help you with that, like that would be amazeballs?
I mean, right now, honestly, people with connections to the film industry, because of a project I've kind of, it's been put on the back burner for now. I haven't really followed up with some of the people I've gotten in contact with. Like, I'm already in contact with a couple of people. But I'd love to get more in touch with people in the film industry for a possible docu-series project. Still some kinks being worked out, but just that's kind of all I have on my mind right now. And then other than that, it's just, I mean, yeah, right now, the other projects I'm working on are things that are already kind of in swing. So.
Okay. Good, man. Yeah. This has been fun. So, and lastly, I'm going to wrap this up by letting you know that I've actually never really liked you at all, because I've admired.
Finally getting to some truth, 𝐿𝐴𝐴.
Because I've admired you, I've loved you, I've kind of sort of I've respected you, and may the moose gods bless you with many good harvests, good fortune, warm home.
Fortune.
Yeah.
Fortune. Okay,
don't mess up my rhythm. Fortune. Don't mess up my rhythm. Like, you chill the fuck out. Can you let me finish this? Now I have to start over. May the moose gods bless you with good fortune, good harvest, maple syrup, many clients, and safety and security. It's been an absolute, no, you've been a dick on this call.
Dude, you've been more of a dick than I have. That's completely
I know bullshit. I have. Okay. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on this call and dropping truth bombs about the art of having nothing on it. I think so many people, you kept that up way longer. I think so many people are going to benefit from this and probably get a good laugh. I was going to send this. Or not. You might get nothing from this, and you might think we're both assholes, but you know, I hope you got something from this. And I will talk to you soon. And thank you for sending me all these amazing rap songs through my Instagram. I am teaching my community about this music. All right, man. So I'll see you later. You take it easy, okay? All right, bye.
See you later.